Yamuna Yagatastita Vrindavanitani Maharani Kalvarumatala Bhumau Charanam Charanoparistatya Tishtandam Bhagavīram Svatejasa Bhāsayannamiha Vishvam Vīyāmbara Paribhāram Chandana Karpūra Sarvāngam Karnapurnagitram Kundalayugamandita Sravanam Mandamidamukakalam सकोसुभोरारिहारम् वलयाङ्गुलीयकाव्या नुज्ज्वलयन्तम् स्वलङ्काराम् गलविलुलितवनहारम् स्वतेजसा भासकलिकालम् गुञ्जारवालिकलितम् गुञ्जा गुञ्जान्विते गुञ्जानं सह गोपैः गुञ्जान्तर्वर्तिनं नमत मन्दारपुष्पवासित मन्दारिदसेवित वरानन्दम् मन्दारिनीयुगपदम् नमत महानन्दम् महापुरुषम् सुरवीन्द्रनिर्मलयम् सुरविशतैरावृतः परितः सुरवीक्षपणमः सुरवीरं यारं नमत।
वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की, श्री रासेश्वरी राधा रानी की, जगत गुरु श्री कृपालु जी महाराज की, श्री राधा गोविंद धाम की जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं देवकं नाथाग्रैवरमौखिकं करतले सर्वाणि हरिचन्दनं सुदलितं कण्ठे च रोहित किसी को
फोन रहेगा आप जरा काउंटर से काउंटर पे
रोहित भैया बताने का आप वो काउंटर पे रख दीजिए, हम आएगा जिसको
जय सीता सुकुमार की साकेत बिहारी श्री राघवेंद्र सरकार की। Radhe Radhe to everyone. We'll continue with our Ram Katha from where we left off last night, where I was explaining to you that Kaikeyi was also doing a seva to Shri Ram. All the participants in Ram's Leelas are divine personalities. No one would ever think of truly opposing Ram. No one would ever have ill will towards Ram. But because he has a whole plan of all the different Leelas he wants to do, so some of the saints do the seva to Ram. They serve him by sometimes doing something that appears to be against him. So even though Kaikeyi, if you observe it from a worldly perspective, she appears to have done a horrible thing, manipulating Dashrath into giving her the 2 boons with which she asked for her son Bharat to become king instead of Ram. And if that wasn't enough, with the 2nd boon, she asked that Ram be sent to the jungle for 14 years and have to live in the jungles for 14 years. And Dashrath was bound because he had given his word. So King Dashrath had to relate this to Ram. And what was Ram's reaction? He was happy. Any ordinary person in this world would gripe and complain and have ill feelings towards Mother Kaikeyi, and he would think his life is over. I was about to become king tomorrow, and now I'm being sent to the forest for 14 years. My life is over. Ram smiled, and he admonished everyone that no one should have ill will towards my mother Kaikeyi. She is the most dear to me. Microphone, turn the microphone. So Ram was perfectly happy to go to the forest, but of course no one else was perfectly happy to see him go. Dashrath ji didn't want him to go, Kaushalya didn't want him to go. None of the Ayodhya Vasis wanted him to go. But Ram was happy for the chance to show that it's the foremost duty of a son to obey his mother and father. And I've received this agya from my father, so off I go. That's it. No worries, no problems. Of course, Lakshman said, I can't let you go alone. You're my everything. Guru pitu matu na janau kau. I don't know any other father but you. I don't know any other mother but you. I don't know any guru but you. You are my everything. So if you're going, I'm going. Ram tried to convince him to stay, that, father's going to take this very hard, so why don't you stay and look after him? Lakshman said, no, I have to go with you. Sita also said, I'm coming with you. Everyone tried to convince her, it'll be so uncomfortable. You've been a princess your whole life, living in the palace, having people wait on you. You'll be living in the jungle, there will be wild beasts. You'll be sleeping on the ground, living in a hut, eating just whatever you can gather from the forest. How will you survive? Why don't you stay? Sometimes you can stay with your parents, sometimes you can stay here in Ayodhya. Just come and go back and forth, and your presence will help keep everyone happy. She said, no. Can sunlight ever be separated from the sun? In the same way, I can never be separated from my Lord Ram. So she also decided to go. There were a lot of conversations that took place between Ram and his mothers and his father, and eventually it was time to go. So King Dashrath gave the agya to Sumantra that you take a chariot and you give Ram and Lakshman and Sita a ride. Let them ride on the chariot as far as Gangaji, and let them have a look at the jungle for 2-3 days and then bring them back. And if they decide not to come back, especially Sita, then tell her again that, please come and look after your in-laws and look after your parents. And he gave instructions like this. Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, they head out, they get on the chariot, and as they're leaving the city, every adult in the city starts following them. So they come out of Ayodhya and they're heading south towards Gangaji and towards what's now Madhya Pradesh. And the whole city is following them. And even though Ram tried to explain to them that how will you stay with me in the jungle? It's not possible. They all kept following him. So that whole first day, the whole crowd came along with Ram, Sita, and Lakshman. That night, they rested. And in the middle of the night, Ram said to Sumantra, let's go. Because he was concerned for the safety of all of these citizens. How would they all survive out there in the jungle? And plus, he was, according to the Agya, he's supposed to be out there in the jungle basically on his own. So he told Sumantra, come this way and that way and go in zigzags all over so no one can read the tire tracks that we leave behind. And while everybody was sleeping, the four of them slipped out in the night. Ram, Sita, Lakshman, and Sumantra. So when the Ayodhya-vasis woke up, of course they were heartbroken, but what could they do? So they went back to Ayodhya. And Ram went on in the chariot. That very day, they reached Shringairpur. So it took them only 2 days to go from Ayodhya to Shringairpur. Shringairpur is on Ganga. It's one of the ghats on Ganga Ji, upstream from Prayag. It's very short drive from Mangar. We go there quite often. Maharaj Ji actually made a small mandir of Sitaram there at Shringverpur. So that very day they reached Shringverpur, which is named, Kripaluji Maharaj said it's named because there was a bear ka pear, a bear tree, you know, bear, the little plums that Shabari had fed to Ram. So there was that type of tree there, and it had such a shape. One of the branches looked like a seam, looked like a big horn. So the name of the town is Shringverpur, even to this day. So they went there. Of course, it was the first time they'd come to Ganga Ji, so they had a holy bath in Ganga Ji. And then some of the villagers from that area came. There was a group of forest-dwelling folks named Nishad who lived in that area, and their leader was called Guham. So he came so affectionately. He had gone in the forest and he had picked some berries and some roots and bulbs, and he had come and, you know, wrapped it all in big leaves, and he came and bowed down in front of Ram and he offered him this. So you can imagine that after living in the royal palace in Ayodhya, what is a few berries and roots and leaves to eat? But Ram was so happy because he only sees the love of his devotees. So he actually, even though Guha had come and bowed before him and said, please accept me as your servant, he made him sit beside him on the same level, on the seat that he was sitting, and then just chatted with him as a friend because he had Sakya Bhav for Ram. He loved Ram as a friend in his heart. So from then on, he stayed with Ram, at least for the next little while in Ram's Leelas. He got to stay with him. That day, that night, he got to have the seva of finding a nice place because he knew the whole area. So he found a nice platform under a tree and he prepared the place for Sita and Ram to sleep. So they made like grass, soft grass. You can bunch up grass. If you pick long grass, you cut it. You can wrap thin string around it and make bunches like that. So you can make bunches and lie them next to each other, and it makes a kind of mattress, and cover it with some soft leaves. It's like a bistar, homemade bistar. So they made that for Sita and Ram, and Ram and Sita lay on that to rest. And Lakshman came and he pressed Ram's feet and legs so that he could fall asleep. And then Lakshman picked up his bow and arrow and he went and stood actually on the side over there keeping watch. And Guha also, he decided, I'm going to keep watch. So he and Lakshman stayed up the whole night. In fact, Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj says that Lakshman didn't sleep 1 second in those 14 years. Because when Ram was awake, he was doing seva to Ram, and when Ram was sleeping, he kept guard. So when would he sleep? There was no one else. So for 14 years, Lakshman, day and night, did seva to Shri Ram. That night, Guha and Lakshman, since they were standing side by side, they had some philosophical discussions. And like often happens between saints, one saint may say something just to give a chance to the other saint to reveal some knowledge. So Guha was saying, you know, that what a horrible thing has happened. Who is this Kaikeyi and how could she cause this to happen, and his poor parents, and oh, this is so horrible that my beloved Ram has been forced out of Ayodhya. So Lakshman instructed him and explained to him in quite some detail that no, don't think of it like this. He says every person has a destiny based on their past actions. So you should never blame another person for something that's happening to you. He says it's all the result of one's past actions. Even if someone is doing something to you or seems to be the cause of your suffering, he says, no, they're not the cause of your suffering. You are the cause of your own suffering. So in this way, they passed the night having philosophical discussions. And when the morning came, then Ram said to him, we're going to go on now, and you can stay here, he told Guha. Actually, first he sent Sumantra back. Said, now it's time for you to go back to Ayodhya. And although he, as instructed, he tried to convince them, okay, you've seen the jungle, now come back with me. But Ram said, you thank my father, you tell him, don't feel any pain for us, we're totally happy, we're not suffering at all. Then he told Guha that you also stay here in your home and we're going on. But he supplicated Ram and asked, can I at least spend a few days until you get settled out here and serve you? Ram said, okay, come for a few days. So then they had to cross Gangaji. Now imagine Ram, the one who made the universe, the one by chanting whose name one can cross over this ocean of material existence. He needed a ferry boat to take him across Gangaji. So Guha called one to come, and this ferry boat man, this Kevat, he was very shrewd in a good way. He was a saint. And he had it in his mind that he wanted to be able to wash Ram's lotus feet and get the foot dust from his feet in that water and then drink that water as a blessing. This was his goal in his mind. So when he saw, oh, you've called me to, take Ram across the Gangaji. But then he very humbly said to Ram that I know the secret of the dust of your lotus feet. I know what happened when you touched that rock and it became a woman. So there's so much power in the dust of your lotus feet. What would happen to me? How would I make a living? If my boat is made of wood. Wood is so much softer than stone. So if the dust from your lotus feet were to fall in my boat, then if my boat becomes a woman, how will I make my living? So Ram knew the desire in his devotee's heart. Jagat Guru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj explains the philosophy behind this, as I related to yesterday, that it is possible for a soul to enter a rock or a stone. That is one of the 84 lakh yoni. But Maharaji says that boat, it was a tree, so it had a soul in it, but now it's just a dead piece of wood. So there's no way a soul could be in that dead piece of wood, but a soul could be in the rock. So, Ahilya could be in the rock, but it's impossible for that same thing to happen to his boat. Of course, the saint knows this, but he's using it as a reason or as a way to get to be able to wash Ram's feet. So Ram said, okay, what can I do? You win. So he very happily brought a carved out wooden big bowl with some water, and he got the chance to wash Ram's feet. And then he took that and he shared it with his whole family, and they drank that charanamrit. And then Ram sat in the boat and he took them all across. Ram, Sita, Lakshman, and Guha. On the other side, Ram said, okay, now it's time for your payment. And he said, oh, no, I can't take anything from you. In fact, Sita was taking one of the rings off her finger, a diamond and gold ring. to give it to him. And he said, oh, no, I can't take anything from you. And his reasoning was, if I take something from you for taking you across Gangaji, when I need you to take me across this ocean of Maya, if you demand payment from me, what will I be able to give for that? So you're also a ferry boat man. And you know how people who work in the same industry, they do favors for each other, right? So they barter. You don't pay me when I need a favor, you do the favor for me, and I won't pay you, I'll do a favor for you, that kind of thing. So we're both in the same industry. I'm a ferry boat man, you're a ferry boat man, you ferry the souls across the ocean of Maya, and I ferry people across the river. So let's make an even trade. So Ram had to accept this as well. When they reached the other side, then they went a little bit further and they found a place to sleep for the night. They found a nice, beautiful tree. And again, Ram and Sita slept and Lakshman kept watch. Eventually, Ram had to convince Bua that it was time for him to go back to his people, of whom he was the chief. So very reluctantly, he left and came back. And Ram and Sita and Lakshman continued on to Prayag. So the next day they reached Prayag. They're moving very fast. In 2 days, they went from Ayodhya to Shringmerpur. They crossed over, they spent 1 night, and although actually Prayag is not really very far from Shringmerpur, so they went downstream to Prayag. Prayag is the place where Gangaji and Yamunaji meet, and there's still the subterranean existence of the Saraswati River as well. So it's called Triveni, the meeting of these 3 holy rivers. Prayag is praised in many places in our scriptures as a very holy place. So Ram went there and he also bathed at the Sangam of Yamuna, Saraswati, and Ganga. And there was a great sage there who stayed there at Prayag. He was named Bharadwaj. So you'll recall in the very beginning, I told you that in fact, the whole telling of the Ramayana is a conversation between the sage Bharadwaj and the sage Yajnavalkya. When Tulsidas Ji is writing, he tells that, okay, one time Yajnavalkya came to the ashram of sage Bharadwaj at this Triveni in Prayag, and Bharadwaj gave him a nice seat to sit, and then he asked him, can I ask you some spiritual questions? And he said, I have some confusion. Is that Ram, by chanting whose name you can cross the ocean of material existence, who is Supreme God, who is told about in Vedas and Upanishads, who is worshipped by God Shiva? Is that Ram the same as the Ram who is the son of King Dasharath in Ayodhya? Because he seems like an ordinary man. So in order to answer that question, Yajnavalkya said, do you know one time Parvati asked the same question to Lord Shankar? And this was the answer he gave. So then Yajnavalkya is relating the conversation between Shankarji and Parvati and how Shankarji told the whole Ramayana. So it's, as all the Hindu scriptures are, conversation within a conversation within a conversation. Each saint is referring to the other saint. It's also a way of authenticating the knowledge. This is authentic because it's told by God Shiva, because it's told by Yajnavalkya. Anyhow, they went to the ashram of Bharadwaj Rishi. And Ram asks him, please tell me, where do we go from here? Where is the path? Where is the way to go? So Bharadwaj said, Ram, wherever you go is going to be the right place. You are Satchidanand Brahm. But since you asked, I can have some of my disciples help you. So his young students, and he said, hey, does anyone want to help Ram find his way? So the whole bunch of them, about 50 of them came. But Bharadwaj said, no, 50 will be too much. He chose 4 of the smartest ones, and he sent them to help Ram. So they, of course, they spent the night there in Bharadwaj's ashram, and the next morning, after again taking a holy dip in Gangaji, they left, and they headed out into the jungles. They passed many beautiful villages. The description is just like the countryside with no big towns, no big cities. It's basically jungle with little villages here and there. And Sita and Ram and Lakshman, they're just going and they're walking now. Of course, they left the chariot in Shringbeyapur. They didn't bring it across on the ferry, so they're walking. And they're walking barefoot. Tulsidas Ji says Ram went ahead, and then Sita, and then Lakshman. So Sita was protected in between the two of them. And as Ram walked, Sita was careful to never step on his footprint. She always put her feet in between his footprints. And Lakshman, who was behind both of them, avoided both of their footprints. Because a servant is not supposed to step on their master's footprint. Even the footprint is pujya, pujaniya. It's something that is worth being worshipped. So the whole time for 14 years, Maharaji, Kripaluji Maharaj, when he talks of the greatness of Lakshman, he also talks of the difficulty of a true servant. Sirabal chalau dharma asmora sabte sevak dharma kathora. Bharatji said, when you'll hear in tomorrow's katha, that Bharatji came to meet Sri Ram, and as he was walking from Ayodhya, they kept telling him, please ride in the chariot, Maharaj. And he said, what? Ram has come this way barefoot? You want me to ride in a chariot that's going to crush his footprints? It's not just my duty to avoid his footprints, it's my duty to put my head on each and every one of his footprints. So imagine how difficult is the real dharma of a true sevak. Only someone like Lakshman could actually usko nibha sakta hai. So as they passed all of these villages, all the villagers were also saints, and they were waiting for who knows how long to have darshan of Sita and Ram. So each village they passed through, all the residents would come and offer fruits and roots and water and offer a place for them to sit and rest and sleep if it was night. And in this way, they made their way through the jungles. There's one sweet akhyan, which is described, a little glimpse into one of the days, where they're sitting and all of these villagers are excited. Of course, Sita is sitting in one area, and all the ladies of the village are gathered around her, and over here, Ram and Lakshman are surrounded by all the men. And they're chatting and talking with them very congenially. So over here, the ladies are asking, those two boys shining, like one looks like a dark thundercloud and the other one looks like lightning in the thundercloud, Ram and Lakshman, who are they? And more specifically, who are they to you? How are you related to them? So of course, Sita Ji is the very form of proper behavior and dharma. And it's not proper for a wife to say like, oh, yeah, he's my husband, right? So in her way, in her very sweet, in her very bashful way, Sita indicated that the very light complexioned one, he's my younger brother-in-law. And then without saying anything, she made them understand with the way she pulled her gungat and the way she looked with her eyes and the way she moved her eyebrows, they all understood that the other one is his older brother. In other words, her husband. So in this way, they traveled and they met all the villagers in all the different gaon along the way. And eventually they reached the ashram of Valmiki. Valmiki wrote the Ramayana before Sri Ram's avatar. Although Ram has taken avatar uncountable times, but in this most recent avatar, Valmiki Ji came first. And with Narad Ji's grace, Narad Ji was his Guruji. With Narad Ji's grace, he did devotion to Sri Ram and he attained the grace of Sri Ram. He attained the divine vision of Ram. So then before Ram even came here on the earth, he wrote his whole Ramayana, the original Sanskrit Ramayana. It is said in the book Bhaktamal, which is written by another saint a few hundred years ago, where he gives a description of many Vaishnava saints from our history. He says that, in fact, the sage Valmiki was the avatar of Brahma. And the same Valmiki came again as Tulsidas Ji. None other than Valmiki came as Tulsidas and wrote the Ramayana in another style in Awadhi, which is the dialect of Hindi spoken in the town of Ayodhya. So they went to the ashram of Valmiki, and now Valmiki and all the residents of his ashram were so happy to see Ram. And of course, after bowing down to the sage, because Ram, wherever he went, wherever there were Brahmins and sages and saints, he's the one who prostrated to them, not the other way around, because he was a king. He was a Kshatriya. So it was his dharma to prostrate to them. And then he asked the sage Valmiki, where should we live? We're here in the jungle. We have to live in the jungle. Where should we stay? So the first thing the sage said is, he smiled and said, you're asking me where you should live? I know who you are. Ram Swarup Tumhar Vachan Agochar Buddhi Par Avigat Akath Apar Neti Neti Nit Nigam Vad. Valmiki Ji says, oh Ram, you can't fool me. I know who you are. Your Swarup is unknowable. I know you're here and I can see you with my own eyes, but the fact is your divine form is unknowable. It is indescribable. Vachana agochar buddhi par. Your divine form that I'm looking at is beyond intellect. It's beyond description. Even the Vedas say neti neti. In other words, whatever we've described about you, Ram, you are much more than that. You're far beyond what we can describe. So your glory is endless. And he goes on to describe some of the details of Ram's glory. Jag pe khan sab dekhan hare vidhi hari shambhu nachavan hare teu na नहीं मर्म तुम्हारा और तुम ही को जाननहारा. Ram, I know who you are. Vidhi, Hari and Shambhu, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. They are like puppets on a string whom you make dance. They are unable to know you. Even they cannot know you. They cannot know you in totality. Then who else would be able to know you? Why is it so? Someone would ask that Ram is God, Vishnu is God, Shankar is God, Brahma, depending on which Brahma it is and on the situation, can also be an avatar of God. So why can they not know Bhagwan Ram? There's a big philosophy behind that. Earlier in this, are unlimited in this universe. Every Brahmand has a structure. There's an earth planet where souls reside, and there's a Swarg, and there's a Narak. And there are unlimited such Brahmans. Narayano Khila Brahmandadhipatire Om Shaha. The ruler of the entire universe, which contains unlimited number of such Brahmans, is but an ansh of Bhagwan Ram, who is none other than Shri Krishna. So Ved tells that Ram, Krishna, their ansh is called Mahanarayan, Mahavishnu, who creates the endless universe. And in that endless universe, there are unlimited Brahmans. And in each Brahman, there's a Vishnu and a Shiva and a Brahma. Sankhya chet rajasamasti na vishwanam katachana. I quoted this half of this shlok from Devi Bhagavat Puran earlier in the week for you, and I explained that even if you could count the number of grains of sand on this planet, you still couldn't count the number of Brahmans in the universe because they're unlimited. So the second half says Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Dinam, Tatha, Sankhya Vidyate. Nor could you count the number of Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas in existence because there's one of each in each Brahman. They're the governors of a Brahman. So they are Ansh of Mahavishnu. Ansh means a part of his power. Mahavishnu comes in each Brahman in unlimited places. So they are all his Ansh. They're a form of him. And he is Ansh of Bhagwan Ram. So the Ansh can never know the Anshi in full, even though internally they're one. But yet it is still said that Srijami Tanniyukto Ham Haro Harati Tat Vashah Vishwam Purusha Rupena Paripati Trishakti Drik Bhagavatam. Brahma is saying, I create with the power given to me by Shri Krishna, Bhagwan Ram. Shankarji destroys with the power he receives from him, and Vishnuji maintains and upholds the existence of the Brahman with the power that he receives from Shri Krishna. So they are all Ansh, and he's Ansh. In other words, Ram is absolute supreme. So Valmiki Ji is saying, who can know you? No one can know you. If Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar can't know you, how can anyone else know you? However, Soi Janai Jehi Dehu Janai Janat Tumahi Hoi Jai. The one to whom you make yourself known can know you. In other words, no one can know you if they try to know you on your own. But if they surrender themselves to you and ask for your grace, then you make yourself known to them. And Janat tumai tumai hui jai. Having graced them in this way, they become just like you. Instead of our current state where we're under the bondage of Maya, we live a temporary life and then we're again and again reborn. We have very limited knowledge, very limited bliss, no bliss at all, no true happiness, limited pleasures of this world. When Ram graces us, then we become just like him. Unlimited life, unlimited knowledge, unlimited bliss. In other words, unlimited Sat Chit Anand. His greatness, his grace. Valmiki goes on to say, Chidanandamaya deha tumhari vigat vikar jana adhikari. Only the one who is qualified can know you, Ram, because your very body is the form of Sat Chit Anand. You are Brahm. And Ram dekhi suni charit tumhara jad mohi buddha hoi sukhara. He said that as well, which I quoted for you yesterday, that those who hear about or see your leelas, if they are unqualified, they may become very confused and take you to be an ordinary person. But those who are wise, they feel very happy seeing your leelas that you do as appear to be an ordinary man. They get great bliss from those leelas. Then he started to answer Ram's question. Ram asked him, where should I go? Where should I live? So he said, live in the hearts of your devotees. And then he gave a beautiful description of the characteristics of a true devotee. I'm just going to share two of those with you, which were not as obvious. Some of them were very obvious, of course. He says, stay in the person's heart whose ears always want to drink the nectar of your leelas and your name. He had some like this, but there were a couple that you wouldn't think of on your own, and they matched perfectly with things that Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj used to tell us over and over again. Practical, very practical guidance for devotees. So one of the things Maharshi Valmiki told Ram is stay in this person's heart who, instead of seeing others' faults, and looking at those faults and counting them and thinking about them, they see the good qualities in the other person. They overlook the faults. They brush the faults aside and they look for the good qualities and they dwell on that. That is the true quality of a true devotee. Stay in that person's heart. And the other thing that he said is that person, stay in their heart, who every good quality about themselves or every good thing they do, they give you the credit. They say, oh, this only happened through Ram's grace. If I have any good qualities, it's only because of Ram's grace. And anytime they do something wrong and whatever faults and bad qualities they have, they take responsibility for those. Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj used to always tell us that don't ever become proud of the devotion you've done, like, oh, I did so many hours of devotion. Just think, I could never have done that if it wasn't for Ram's grace. And then when you do something that you're not supposed to or that you regret, you don't say that happened because of Ram. You say, that was my mistake. That's because I forgot Ram. That's why I did that. So the same thing Valmiki Ji is telling Ram. And finally, after this long discussion, he tells him, and by the way, there's a beautiful place near here called Chitrakoot. There's a beautiful hill. Head that way, and you'll see this mountain, this hill, Chitrakoot Hill. And near there, there's a river named Mandakini. That is the place you can go and stay. So Ram and Sita and Lakshman, who are now alone without anyone accompanying them or escorting them, they continued to walk in the direction that Valmiki had guided them. And they eventually reached Chitrakoot. And Chitrakoot was so beautiful, and I felt so happy to be there. So Ram instructed Lakshman that go down by the river. Here's a nice place you can make your way down to the bank of Mandakini. Suitable place for us to set up. We'll build some huts and we'll stay here. So Lakshman went down, and River Mandakini in this area bends like this. So we found a nice bend that's facing the south. So it's bending like this. So you're on the inside of the bend, and behind to the north is that mountain, that hill, Chitrakoot. So he felt like, oh, this is the perfect place. So he went, he got Ram and Sita and he showed them, and Ram approved. So then what happened? Vishwakarma, the architect of the Devtas in Swarg, came in disguise as a forest dweller. And he came, and along with some other Devtas who were in disguise, they came and they built 2 huts. One a little bit bigger for Ram and Sita, and one a little bit smaller for Lakshman. So they build, obviously, Vishwakarma. He's beyond compare. But all he had to work with was grass and leaves and some sticks. So you can build, I mean, you make the frame, right? You get some sticks and bend them over and you make a frame. And then, like I was telling you, you make these bundles of grass and you can actually make a waterproof structure. So they did that. They made these grass huts covered with leaves on the outside. And Ram and Sita and Lakshman, they were very happy to see those, and they began living there in Chitrakoot. And it is said that all the animals at that time, there were elephants and lions and tigers and cheetahs and leopards and deer and birds, they all got along. There was no fear. None of the animals were chasing the other ones or eating the other ones. All the animals around that area, they lived like one big happy family for as long as Sita and Ram were there. And Sita was so happy. Imagine someone who left the palace and now she's sleeping on the ground in a grass hut. She is just feeling like, no, this is even better. I love this. She had, for her family, she had all the deers and all the birds around who they were literally like their family. They were like their pets. They would come around and come near them and even nuzzle them and snuggle with them. So they lived very happily, very peacefully, and all the surrounding rishis and munis and villagers would always come and be so happy to have darshan of Sita and Ram, and all the trees just created shadow whenever the sun was hot, and when it was cooler in the winter, there'd be more sun, and all the trees bore flowers and fruits, desiring to do seva to Sitaram. And in this way, they lived a very idyllic existence here at Chitrakoot, which is a beautiful place in what is modern-day Madhya Pradesh. You can even go and visit nowadays. You can go and have darshan on the bank of River Mandakini. They stayed there, but they didn't stay there the whole 14 years. They went somewhere else. So why did they leave Chitrakoot and where else did they go? We'll get to that part tomorrow. Now we'll finish with a couple of minutes of Kirtan and then we'll offer gold and Mugarba. बोलो श्री रामचंद्र भगवान की।
Often